Hi, and thank you so much for joining us for yet another episode of King Crush Thursdays, where we highlight and uplift Black men because frankly, not too many people are doing it. I'm so grateful to have yet another amazing king with us. A friend of mine who is a lawyer. He's a Renaissance man. He likes to sail boats. He's worked in a record company. He ran a school. He's been a nonprofit. He's amazing. And I think that you will enjoy what he has to say also. So please welcome my friend, Elbert Sampson. Hi, Elbert.
Hi, Valerie. So good to see you. It really is. It's always good to see you. But today's a special day. We're in the midst of the COVID pandemic. We just dodged a hurricane. I'm in Miami. And
wow.
The hurricane was headed right for Miami and then kind of veered off the coast. So we got a little rain, a little wind, but nothing really of any significance. Life is good.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for technology that we can talk to each other. We don't have to be in the same city. That's the beauty of this, that Black men are everywhere and
Everywhere.
Black kings are everywhere.
Yep.
In Elbert series, we are talking to a lot of Black men who are successful. And I define success not by what someone does, but by the content of their character. And to me, you're an incredibly successful man who actually embodies both things. And so I'm really grateful. We actually asked the same 6 questions because we were creating a repository of questions and answers with the hopes that one day maybe a young king who perhaps doesn't have positive role models in his life can come and look at these questions and see a myriad of Black men answering and perhaps find guidance. Or perhaps a young king is rich with male influence, positive male influence in his life, and he can come and still learn and be inspired. And even yet, others of us who are not Black men, some of us who may not be Black, may have an insight to the richness and the wisdom that exists in our community. And so I'm so, again, grateful and excited that you're here. And we're going to get started with the first question, which is, what does manhood mean to you?
My goodness, that's such a, I looked at the questions that you sent me, and I tried to really think through what the best answers were and realized that there really were no best answers. I had some amazing examples growing up. I didn't know that they were amazing examples. My father was very much a major influence in my life, but he had 5 brothers and 4 male cousins that my grandmother raised. So there were 10 men who were keeping an eye on me. I couldn't go out into the world and do something really stupid because I knew that at the end of the day, I would have to sit at the table with 10 men who were going to question me, who were going to prod me, who were going to tell me that I'd really done something stupid and I didn't want that to happen. But I also knew that if I had a problem in the world, there were 10 men right at my back who were my protectors. And I never really needed the force of that coming up. So I guess the answer to the question of what manhood means is a sense of responsibility. My father was the oldest of 8, and he helped my grandfather get his family through the Depression, moving from a farm in Georgia where they were basically sharecroppers or tenant farmers, my grandfather and his 3 brothers. And there was this cohesiveness in the family that was led by a very strong-willed man who was very clear on what everybody needed to do. Everybody had a role in the family. Everybody had to play their role because if they didn't, the family didn't work. So it has to do with a sense of responsibility and a sense of accountability, being responsible for themselves and for the people that are close to them, and being accountable so that people knew that they could rely on it. So that's my answer. A little long-winded, but
No, that's great. It's a great answer. It's very fortunate. And so, who or what is important to you?
Oh my goodness, the people in my life. I've done a lot of things, as you alluded to at the beginning of this. a lot of things professionally, a lot of things politically, a lot of things socially. And the people that I have come to encounter that have become, in many cases, very close, lifelong friends, such as yourself. I consider you a lifelong friend. But people I have been able to kind of bounce off of, that I've interacted with, that I've shared experiences with, that I've shared projects with and worked with. I guess the single most important person in my life right now is Pat Smith, who is my life mate of 13 years, who I've spent every day with, certainly during the pandemic, since she doesn't travel and I don't travel. We were right here together every single day. And, you know, we have this shared vision. We see things pretty much the same. I can't imagine that there are many topics that we really have a divergent opinion about. And it's great. She's a great mirror, a great reflection in my life. And, you know, we share our adventures, we share our ups and downs. So I'd say Pat is the most significant, but there's so many others, so many others.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And so speaking of mirrors, how do you want us to see you?
How do I want, who is us?
The rest of the world, or whoever it is that
you see me as I am. I get up in the morning and that's who I am. So when I was a kid, one of my really close adult models was my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. His name was Ed Reed, and he started working on the railroad when he was 15 years old. He lied about his age, and he worked on the railroad until he was 75. He retired at 70 and stayed out of work for a few months, and then went back and begged his way back into a job. And when he hit 75, they said, "You have to go. We can't insure you. This is dangerous. You have to go. You have to go do something." So what he did was he went out and bought himself a brand new Corvette. And that was his sort of like his social swan song. But he used to always say, if people said, "Ed, how you doing today?" He'd say, "I'm great. I'm having a 2-up day." And people would do what you just did. 2-up day. What is that supposed to mean? He says, "I woke up and I got up." And, you know, people take that very much for granted. Well, in my life, I guess in the late 70s, around 1978, 79, I woke up and one morning I couldn't get up. And it turned out I was paralyzed from the waist down. A disc had slipped out of place, lodged against the sciatic nerve. And the result of that was I spent about 4 months in bed. And I spent another 5 or 6 months exercising every day, reestablishing my ability to walk. So I wake up in the morning, I don't take anything for granted. If I can get up, it's a great day. There's not a whole lot that can go wrong. So
that's amazing. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, my goodness.
Yeah.
And a 2-up day. I am really going to start adopting that. It's a 2-up day. Yes, that's awesome. That's
so
awesome.
If you wake up, you got a good start on the day. If you can get up, the day is yours.
The day is yours. That's amazing. Oh, I'm totally taking it. That's awesome. Thank you.
It came from Ed Reed.
Ed Reed. That was your grandfather, you said, right?
That's my mother's father, my grandfather, yes.
Awesome. Excellent. Ed Reed. I'll remember that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so, Elbert, what is your epic dream?
What is epic? What kind of epic are you referring to?
Elbert, however you want to define epic. So let me just say this, that I don't believe in dreaming big. I believe that my dreams are actually bigger than big, and they're actually epic.
I see. So peace on earth, is that in the realm of epic dreams?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, that is certainly one of my dreams. That we get to a point in our existence where we don't have to figure out how to resolve conflicts because we don't have them. Where we don't have to figure out the best ways to educate children because the education they need is just a part of the process of life. Where we begin to put our social resources where they really need to go. We shouldn't have to debate whether we're going to spend more money to educate kids or to clean schools or to put research into medical problems. Those are things that we do because they're the right things to do. We don't have to worry about young people attacking older people on the street because, we figured out how to share with young people the things that they need to feel secure. A lot happens in the world based on people's fear, insecurities, a reaction that they have to what happens around them that they don't control. I guess my epic dream is that we figure that out and figure out how to get past all those things that kind of drag us all down, that make us fearful, make us feel insecure, make us feel that we don't have a stake in the future. It's all very much lofty, but I think epic really implies loftiness, and we can actually aspire to and acquire a lot of that. We have the power, we have the ability, we have the knowledge. We just have to focus. We just have to stay focused. So, and I think in some ways, and this may be a little, I hadn't thought about this, coronavirus may be a blessing in disguise because it has caused and allowed us to begin to focus our thinking, our relationships. We have much more purposeful conversations with people now because we don't have the passing conversations as easily. So when we do communicate, it's really much more purposed and focused. And we're talking about things toward real resolution. 6 months ago, and since I just moved from Philadelphia last year, I used Philadelphia as a reference. There was a lot of discussion about how to clean asbestos out of the schools. Not much discussion about the content of education in the schools. Now the focus is really on how are we going to teach and what are we going to teach and how are we going to measure our successes. And we're really starting to focus on the real elements of education, of work. People have been going in and out of offices for years and not giving it a whole lot of thought. Now that you don't have the offices, now people are starting to focus on the work itself, not just the form of how you get there and what you do, but the purpose. So, we'll see. This is going to take a long time to resolve. But I think in the course of our dialogue, we're going to come to some real significant answers.
Right. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. Thank you. So, Elbert, who are you?
Who am I? I am Elbert Sampson, firstborn of Elbert Sampson, who was the firstborn of a tribe of 8. Reared by my parents in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, when I was probably around 5. My great-grandmother, my mother's grandmother, came to live with us, and my parents created an apartment for her within the house. They rebuilt the whole basement of the house into an apartment. She was born into slavery. She lived in the woods in Tennessee. She and her 3 siblings and her parents, they ate whatever they could grow or hunt for or fish for. I think she told me she didn't go to a store until she was a teenager, and she didn't go to school until she was in her mid-20s. And what she learned in school was to read, and she became a voracious reader. She read everything. She would get up every morning and walk to the store, which was 4 or 5 blocks away. Rain, snow, this is in Chicago now. So when the blizzards came, she'd just take a little bit longer to walk. And she did that until one day she came home and sat down on the steps of the house and went to sleep. And that was the end of her life. She was 97 years old. She'd never flown in an airplane, was very leery of cars because they went a lot faster than we were supposed to go as people. But she just knew, she knew so much. She knew so much about everything. It was just amazing. And I was the only one in the house that would eat with her because she liked very strange foods like possum and squirrel. So everybody that we knew that hunted would always bring her something from their hunts. And she'd love to go out and fish. She was still a country person who was living in the city, but she managed to pull all those pieces of life together. So I grew up with I guess, a little bit of a different appreciation for who we were as a people, who I was as a person, because she brought together so many different life experiences. I mean, she lived through so much that we knew so little about. I mean, the Industrial Revolution, Reconstruction. I mean, she was cognizant of a lot of the stuff that happened during Reconstruction. So that was my great-grandmother. My grandmother was a very sophisticated woman. She worked for a very wealthy Jewish family that owned supermarkets and traveled the world with this family. She managed their household. She spoke about 5 languages. She did several things that were just seminal in my existence. She took me to the wake for Emmett Till. I was 10 years old. We stood in this line for hours. It was cold. It was in Chicago. It was during the winter. And I didn't have an understanding of why. She insisted on doing this. She said I had to have this experience. And what she really was doing, she wanted me to be educated about Black men, Black boys, and the fact that we lived in a very insecure, very perilous world, but at the same time, we had certain abilities and powers that were not always realized. And we stood for hours and we walked past this coffin. I mean, there are people, I mean, I've never seen so many people in my whole life. She took us to the symphony. She took us to operas. I mean, she took us to things that were just way beyond any comprehension. And we didn't understand what she was doing. What she was doing was introducing us to elements in the world that we might not have experienced had it not been for that introduction. So, you know, I came along at a time in the 50s and 60s in Chicago when Black community was just thriving. I mean, there was such an elemental Black community. Black people didn't have to go outside the Black community for anything. Everything that you needed and wanted was right there. My first job at 16 was working in the mailroom at the Chicago Metropolitan Mutual Assurance Company, which was a Black-owned insurance company that operated one of the biggest funeral parlors in the city. And it was a business that was run by Black people. All the executives were Black. All the administrative people were Black. All the sales people were Black. I mean, everybody in the business was Black. And it was, you know, it was in my mind, my thinking was this was normal. It never occurred to me that you couldn't do any of these things. It was just part of life. So, you know, that was kind of the introduction to a lot for me. And it kind of launched me on my journey in life. So, you know, I started college very young. My father had this vision that I was going to have a PhD by the time I was 22, which did not happen. I don't have it yet. I'm way past 22. But he kind of pushed me. And so every summer I would go to school, every summer, and finish high school at 16, started at the University of Illinois when I was 16. Unfortunately, my father died as I was coming out of high school. He died of an illness that we never really identified, something that he contracted during the war. And I kind of launched off on my own. I ended up leaving Chicago after a couple of years in college and went to California and went to school in California and, you know, just started my checkered life of exploration. That's what I call it. So I worked for IBM. I was an engineer. I worked for IBM and then ended up running a nonprofit in New York a few years after that. And we trained documentary filmmakers and television news cameramen. Then I worked for the lobby for the broadcasting industry and started my course in broadcasting. I was program director for a TV station. I managed a radio station in California and then went to law school and worked for Paramount Pictures and then private practice. And I've just done all kinds of stuff, you know. But, you know, if you look at it, if I look at it, the way I look at it is that one thing kind of logically fed into the next. They weren't major changes. They were just progressions on a journey. And I hadn't really thought through where the journey was going to take me. And I probably have benefited from not having done that because I did not have to say, oh, I can't do that because it's not getting me toward my goal. I would more likely say, oh, that sounds fascinating. Let me see what that looks like. And it just kind of moved on. I ended up running a charter school for years because I was invited to sit on the board. As a member of the board, I decided that we had a terrible facility. So I spent 2 years looking for buildings. And then I spent a year finding financing. And we built a brand new school facility for these 400 mostly Black kids who were almost all living in poverty. And that was just amazing. It was exhausting. It was 7 days a week, 10, 12, 14 hours a day, and it went on for years. But we did it. We got that done, and positively impacted a lot of people. And as I move around now, I haven't traveled in 6 months, but as I move around now, I run into these kids who are adults now, who have families, who finished college, or I run into their parents. And I can't go too far for very long without somebody calling my name and saying, do you remember me? And me saying no. But we ended up having these amazing conversations. It's it really quite fulfilling, the impact you can have on people. I lived in China. I went to China to study Chinese and study Chinese law, and ended up traveling back and forth to China for years. But I lived there for about 5 years and built a factory, manufactured wood products. Just, it has been a journey. I can't imagine crafting the journey that I have experienced. I can't imagine sitting down and saying, okay, these are the things I'm going to do with my life, and I'm going to take this path. It just has happened. I am probably one of the most fortunate people in the world, because I came through it healthy, strong, in a wonderful relationship, living a very low-key, very quiet, very peaceful life. So what can I tell you? I just celebrated my 75th birthday, and I just, I feel great. Huh?
That's right. Happy birthday, Elbert.
Thank you. It's been a couple of weeks now, but yeah.
I know. It just hit. All the days are one day in my head, but happy belated birthday.
Thank you so very much. Well, you can wish me happy birthday for the next one.
Yes.
That's the more important one.
Yeah. Yes.
So, awesome. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Elbert, we are basically, I have one more question. Is there anything that I should have asked you or you wish I had asked you that I did not?
Wow, that's probably the most interesting question you've asked me. Let me see. I guess what's next, in terms of my journey, this process that I'm embarking on, have always embarked on. What's the next way station along the path? And the answer is I'm not really sure. I'm living in Coral Gables. Pat took a job here in Florida about 2 years ago. And last year we decided that we liked it, so we decided to move from Philadelphia to Florida. So we're living here now full time. Just last week I spent a couple of days moving my sailboat from the marina it's been in to a storage facility up a river, 25 miles inland. And I did it just before the storm came. I mean, it was fortitude. I've been trying to move it for 3 weeks and the weather just hasn't been cooperative. So I was able to do it last week. And I guess one of the things I'd like to do a lot more of is sailing and diving. I've been a certified diver since the early 80s, and I've been diving all over the world. The Florida Keys are some of the best diving areas in the whole world. I haven't had a chance to do much diving in the Keys, and so the boat would be a great platform to be able to do a lot more of that. I've been writing. I've been trying to finish a book I started years and years ago about my experiences in China. So I really am kind of organizing that and really trying to focus on that. I study music for about 2 years, 2.5 years now. I've worked with a musician that Richard Hill, and I've been studying upright bass. Well, studying music, and my instrument is the upright bass. So I'm really focusing on that every day. I'm working on that every day. I'm actually getting pretty good at reading music. So I've been really kind of focusing on just being able to identify the notes and do it in the proper time. So I'm getting to a point now where I can do that. So I don't know where that's going to go. I enjoy it. I don't want to put any special goals on that in particular. Pressures on myself to do anything in particular. I don't anticipate a career as a professional jazz musician, but if I can go out and play with people and make good music, I'll be happy with that. So I don't know, maybe it's what's next is probably the most intriguing question in my life right now.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, you are truly a Renaissance man, Elbert. Like, I just really appreciate all the things that you do. I appreciate all the ways that you are in the world. You're just, you're very practical, full of wisdom, fanciful, but really pragmatic. And, as you are a member of my personal board of directors, my kitchen cabinet.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate the advice and the friendship you've given me over the years, and by extension to everyone that I know. And I've watched you in the school. I remember going to the school and watching you engage with the students, particularly middle school. Like, arguably some of the hardest times all of us have gone through is that middle school age. But just watching you in the school with the young people, with the faculty, with the administrators, just your overall affable way of just being in relationship with anyone. I just really appreciate you. And I honor you, my king. And
thank you so very much.
Absolutely. And that's it. That's the interview. That is it. We asked the 6 questions. Thank you for amplifying that 6th question, which is, basically another way of saying, like, you tell me something, and so I'm so grateful for you, and I'm grateful for you for tuning in to us. Thank you so much for tuning in for yet another episode of King Crush Thursday. If there is a man in your life who you want to see uplifted and supported, please just hit me up, either DM me or click on my link below, I think in the bio, and let me know. We'll take it from there.
All right, Valerie.
And so in the meantime, though, please remember to spread love and have a great day. Thanks, Elbert.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. All right.
Bye.